Coming up on Mountain News this morning, Republican Daniel Cameron made history on Tuesday in the contest for state attorney general. And Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell filed a bill yesterday to secure the pensions of union coal miners, but some worry the plan falls short. Plus, the coal company with several mines in our region plans to lay off more than 150 people around the beginning of next year.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning. The time is 6:30 on November 7th. I'm Madison Pergram, and thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. Well, we've been saying it is a little chilly, so you might need a light jacket, but more importantly, maybe a rain jacket. Let's go to Brandon Robinson. Brandon, there is going to be rain maybe throughout the day.
Yes, there is. And again, it reminds me of that song from the 90s, Here Comes the Rain Again, because it's moving in. It's into parts of central Kentucky now. Let's take a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar, and you can see it right there through Danville up toward Lexington, even around Moorhead there along I-64. Just outside of the Rowan County line, but it's coming, and we'll see more of that off and on throughout the day. Temperatures in the 40s and 50s. One of the warmer spots is Pikeville at 56, 45 here in Hazard, 50 in London, 52 in Harlan, 48 in Moorhead, and 49 in Middlesboro. That is anywhere between 11 and 20 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. How crazy is that? Day planner for you today. We'll drop into the upper 40s for most folks this morning before rebounding a little bit to the low 50s, and the rain chances will pick up. As we look at the headlines looking ahead, after that cold front gets here and goes through, temperatures will crash, but a nice weekend is ahead. I'll have more on that in a little bit. Madison?
Thank you, Brandon. Well, Andy Beshear is moving forward with transition plans after Tuesday's election. WYMT's Connor James has more from Louisville, where Beshear said he is looking to the future of the Commonwealth.
With a margin of roughly 5,000 votes, Governor Bevin has yet to concede.
The election ended. It ended. And it's time to move forward.
Andy Beshear looking to move forward, appointing J. Michael Brown as his transition chair.
Our government, our whole system is based on changes of authority, and what distinguishes us is that it's peaceful and it's smooth.
Beshear addressed a room of reporters at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville Wednesday. He talked about several topics, one of which being what he'll do in office. He says he will rescind Bevin's Medicare waiver.
Well, we're going to look at every option that is out there to make sure that we can provide affordable and accessible health care to our people.
Beshear, the former Attorney General, will have to have someone fill the role. He says he has not decided yet, but has reached out across party lines to get input.
Well, I've reached out and left a message with Daniel Cameron. I'm going to talk to him about that issue.
Beshear preached bipartisanship Wednesday. He will need it. The House and Senate are Republican, along with every other constitutional office that was on Tuesday's ballot.
Regardless of how they voted, I'm going to serve as their governor, and regardless of how they voted, I'm going to try to be a good governor for them.
As Beshear says, the election outcome won't change, and he believes it is time to move on.
Beshear does not appear to be worried moving forward, saying the margin is too big right now. And Governor Matt Bevin is still hesitant, even calling out Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes about how quickly she called the election. And the aftermath of Kentucky's election is being felt across the state. Governor Matt Bevin held a news conference yesterday shortly after his campaign requested a formal recanvass. Bevin stressed that he wants the people of Kentucky to know their voting process is safe and they got what they voted for. He also mentioned a number of possible irregularities, especially in Jefferson County, which Beshear dominated.
What we know is that there really are a number of significant irregularities, the specifics of which we're in the process of getting affidavits and other information that will help us to get a better understanding of what did or did not happen. Those will be forthcoming in the days ahead. But that's the cart getting in front of the horse, because none of this will really be followed through on until after the recanvassing process.
He also expressed frustration with Allison Lundergan Grimes, saying that she does not have the best history and neither does her father. Meanwhile, Andy Beshear is moving forward with transition plans. And in the contest for state attorney general, Republican Daniel Cameron made history on Tuesday. He is the first African American to be elected on his own to a state office. The election now behind him, Cameron says he is ready to fight the drug epidemic, an issue he focused on during his campaign. He says he is also ready to work with his Democratic Democratic predecessor and perhaps soon-to-be Governor Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear also talked along those lines during his press conference yesterday morning, saying that he is willing to work together and, quote, change the tone. Both expressed meeting sometime in the future to discuss how Cameron will transition into his role as Attorney General. And a big factor in this race was education. We know Governor Bevin has been met with harsh criticism from Kentucky's teachers. Andy Beshear used that as part of his campaign. Yesterday, we heard from the Kentucky Education Association, who have been critical of the governor. Victor Puente has their reaction to Tuesday's election.
I think the educators made the difference in this election. I think educators all across the state, our KEA members came out, they went out into their communities, they knocked on doors, they talked to their neighbors.
The fight between Governor Matt Bevin and teachers across the Commonwealth over the pension system had led thousands of them to Frankfort to protest. It caused multiple school districts to have to close. They say they don't anticipate that kind of relationship with Beshear.
And now we know moving forward that he's going to stand with us and give us a seat at the table so we can have conversations about public education that's going to have real impacts in our classrooms all across the state.
These educators tell me they realize, regardless of who's in office, finding money for those pension problems is still going to be a big issue here in Frankfort.
New sources of revenue are always going to be needed, and that will be up to the legislature that will make that decision. But I think with Andy, he's going to be standing up for the educators, and we'll coming together to make some kind of decision that will really focus on public education.
In Frankfort, Victor Puente, WYMT Mountain News.
President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence did everything they could to help Governor Bevin's re-election bid. Some believe his loss, along with other election night losses by Republicans nationwide, could spell trouble for the president's own 2020 re-election bid. Yesterday, we heard from Mark Lauder, President Trump's 2020 Director of Strategic Communications, on how Governor Bevin's failed bid might impact the campaign.
These governor's races, they're very important, but from a state perspective, but when it comes to the national elections, they don't matter that much. I don't think any of those blue states with Republican governors are going to suddenly switch. I also don't think there's any chance that Kentucky is not going to be in President Trump's column next year.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is also up for re-election in 2020. In Kentucky, Senator Mitch McConnell filed a bill yesterday to secure the pensions of union coal miners. But the Lexington Herald Leader reports some are worried that it falls short of protecting disabled miners. The bill would help stabilize pension funds for the United Mine Workers of America. But the bill does not reinstate a tax on coal companies that funds the Black Lung Disability Fund. That fund has been in jeopardy since last year when the tax was cut in half. Advocates warn that thousands of disabled miners could lose access to health care if the fund dries up. And a new court filing reveals new information in the class action lawsuit against Black Jewel. Attorneys entered into confidential mediation a few days ago. We have learned little progress was made. And since the bankruptcy case is mostly resolved, the federal magistrate wrote the class action will likely move into district federal court. And a coal company with several mines in our region plans to lay off more than 150 people around the beginning of next year. WYMT's Hannah Reynolds talks to officials about what they fear this could mean for the miners and their families living in those counties.
When officials got a warn notice from Nally and Hamilton, one of the most stable coal companies in the region, it was unsettling to say the least.
To have 100 folks be laid off, you could probably factor that, multiply that times 3. So we would end up with 300 to 400 people negatively impacted.
The notices hit desk of judge executives in Harlan, Leslie, Nelson, Bell, and Laurel counties last week, informing them that miners in their area could be laid off. The biggest of which was in Pineville, potentially putting 97 jobs at stake. Something former miners of Nally and Hamilton who were laid off years ago fear for their friends, as they know the drill all too well.
I know what I went through last time, because I ended up losing my truck and I lost my house. And, so I know how it can end up if you can't find something else.
But Phipps, other miners we talked to, and Judge Executive Albie Brock say they are hopeful it will not come to fruition.
We're going to pray that the Hamiltons do what they've always done, and that is survive in any coal market. And again, I'm going to have faith that they will.
If the layoffs do happen, there are an expected 170 layoffs total throughout the company. In Bell County, Hannah Reynolds, WYMT Mountain News.
We also reached out to Nally and Hamilton Enterprises at their Bardstown office, and they did not want to comment.
Well, the forecast this morning, dreary across much of the mountains, but dry for now. Make sure you take your rain gear, though, as you head out the door. Look at those clouds outside the WYMT studios. Maybe just a little bit of a break there in the action right along the ridge line there here in Hazard. But again, we're seeing temperatures warmer than they were yesterday, but still a bit on the cooler side and dropping. 45 in Hazard, 41 now in Jonesville, but a lot of folks closer to 50 there. The warmest spot in the region is 56 in Pikeville. Your out the door forecast, we are going to see rain start to move in. It could be heavy at times. Temperatures will kind of stabilize right there in the low 50s about 11 o'clock and stay that way through about 2 p.m. and then we'll start to see those drop as that front goes by. Talking about the weekend earlier, let's take a sneak peek. Cooler as we head into Saturday, but still sunny and nice on Sunday, so you can't beat that. But after that, big changes are on the way. Madison.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you for joining Mountain News this morning. Here's a look at what's ahead. The cause of a deadly Tennessee crash that killed 2 men and injured another from eastern Kentucky yesterday is still unknown. And officials say 2 people were flown to the hospital after 2 accidental shootings.